When my girlfriend left without explanation, everyone expected me to chase. I didn't. I let the space grow. Over time, that absence created consequences she never imagined when she decided to walk away. "You're really not going to call me, are you?" She stood in my doorway with 2 suitcases, mascara smudged under her eyes, waiting for me to break. I looked at her for a long moment, then went back to my coffee. "That's it." Her voice cracked. 3 years, and you're just going to let me walk out?" I took a sip, felt the bitter heat on my tongue. "You packed the bags, Melissa. You made the choice." The door slammed hard enough to rattle the frame. I sat there in the silence she left behind, waiting for the panic to hit, for the desperate urge to chase her down the hallway. It never came. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. I'm 29, been with Melissa since we were 26. We lived together for 2 years in a decent apartment in the city, until that Tuesday morning when she decided we needed space. The thing about Melissa was that she'd done this before. Not the packing and leaving part, but the testing part. She'd create distance, pull back, go cold, then wait to see how hard I'd fight to close the gap. The first time it happened, about 8 months into our relationship, I'd panicked. Called her 12 times in one night. Showed up at her place with flowers and apologies for things I wasn't even sure I'd done. She'd smiled, kissed me, told me she just needed to know I cared. The second time, a year later, I'd given it 3 days before cracking. Written her a long email about how much she meant to me, how I couldn't imagine life without her. She'd come back, satisfied. The pattern repeated maybe 4 or 5 times over 3 years. Each time, I'd chase a little less frantically, but I always chased. I always proved I cared enough to fight for us. But something shifted in me about 6 months before she packed those suitcases. We'd been at her friend Becca's wedding. Open bar, terrible DJ, the usual. I'd stepped outside for air and overheard Melissa talking to some bridesmaids I didn't know. "The key is making him think he might lose you," she was saying, laughing. "Men don't appreciate what they have until it's walking out the door. I've trained mine pretty well." The other women had giggled, asked for details. Melissa had launched into a story about our second break, making it sound like some strategic masterclass in relationship management. I'd stood there in the dark, beer getting warm in my hand, processing what I'd just heard. Not hurt exactly, just tired. So when she packed those bags on that Tuesday morning over some vague complaint about me not being emotionally present enough, something in me just refused to play along. The first week was weird. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, but I didn't touch it. Our mutual friends started reaching out. Her best friend Becca called on day 3. "Hey, so I heard you two are taking some time. You doing okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "Have you talked to Melissa?" "Nope." Pause. "Don't you think you should? She's pretty upset. She left, Becca. If she wants to talk, she knows my number." "That's not how this works," Becca said, frustration creeping into her voice. "She needs you to show you care. By chasing her every time she decides to test me?" Longer pause. "I don't think that's fair," Becca said quietly. "Maybe not, but I'm tired of proving myself on command." She hung up shortly after. My buddy Trevor came over on day 5 with beer and pizza. "So you're really doing this?" he asked, settling onto my couch. "Doing what?" "The whole strong silent thing. Not calling her." I shrugged. She wanted space. I'm giving her space. Trevor laughed. "Man, you know that's not what she meant." "Then she should say what she means." He studied me for a moment, then cracked open a beer. "You know she's going to lose her mind, right? Melissa's used to you coming back." "Probably. And you're cool with that?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "Yeah," I said finally. "I think I am." The second week, Melissa posted on social media. Nothing direct, just quotes about knowing your worth and not settling for half-hearted love. Pictures of her out with friends, looking happy and free. I didn't like or comment on any of it. Didn't even look at most of it, honestly. Trevor would send me screenshots, sometimes with messages like, "Dude, she's spiraling." But I'd just set my phone down and go back to whatever I was doing. I'd started running in the mornings, something I'd always meant to do but never had time for. Turned out I had a lot of time now. My apartment stayed cleaner. I cooked actual meals instead of ordering takeout. Read 3 books in 10 days. It wasn't that I was trying to prove anything or show her what she was missing. I just didn't have the constant low-level anxiety anymore. The waiting for the next test, the next hoop to jump through. Week 3, her sister Rachel called me. "You're being an asshole," she said without preamble. "Hello to you too, Rachel. Melissa is a wreck. She's barely eating. Do you even care?" Did she ask you to call me? Silence. Rachel, did she? That's not the point. That's exactly the point, I said. She's got everyone calling me, texting me, telling me what a terrible person I am for not chasing her. But she hasn't called me once herself. Because she's scared. She put herself out there, and you rejected her. I almost laughed. She packed bags and left with zero real explanation except that I wasn't emotionally present enough. That's not putting yourself out there. That's manipulation. Jesus, when did you become so cold? I'm not cold, Rachel. I'm just done playing games. She called me a few more names and hung up. That night, I blocked her number. Not out of anger, just out of a need for peace. The calls and messages from Melissa's friends had become constant, a drumbeat of guilt and pressure. I blocked most of them too. Kept Trevor, my brother, a couple of work friends. Everyone else could wait until this blew over. Around week 4, something interesting happened at work. There's a woman in the marketing department, Charlotte, who I'd always been friendly with. Professional, casual conversations by the coffee maker, that sort of thing. She stopped by my desk one afternoon with a question about a project, and we ended up talking for 20 minutes. Nothing inappropriate, just easy conversation. She was smart, funny, didn't play weird games. When she left, I realized I'd smiled more in that 20 minutes than I had in the last 6 months with Melissa. It wasn't about Charlotte specifically. It was about remembering what it felt like to just exist with someone without calculating every word, every action, every response for maximum emotional impact. I went home that night and finally let myself think about the relationship clearly. Really look at it without the fog of anxiety and people-pleasing. Melissa was beautiful, charismatic, fun at parties. Everyone loved her. But with me, alone, she was different. There was always an edge, a sense that I was being evaluated. Every conversation felt like a quiz I hadn't studied for. Every gesture was measured against some invisible standard I could never quite meet. And the worst part was that I'd convinced myself this was normal. That relationships required this kind of constant effort and stress. That if I just tried hard enough, proved myself enough, she'd finally relax and we'd be happy. But she never did. Because the testing was the point. The power dynamic was the point. I sat on my couch that night, beer in hand, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Week 5, Melissa finally texted me. We need to talk. I stared at the message for a full minute. Typed and deleted 3 different responses. Finally settled on. Okay. When? Tonight. I'm coming over. My place isn't a great idea. Coffee shop. The 3 dots appeared and disappeared 4 times. Fine. The place on 5th. 7 p.m. I got there at 7 on the dot. She was already in a corner booth, looking thin and tired. Part of me wanted to feel bad about that. The old me would have felt bad about that. But I'd spent 5 weeks learning not to take responsibility for other people's choices. I slid into the booth across from her. Hi, I said. Hi. Her voice was small, uncertain. This was new. You wanted to talk? She wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, not drinking. I don't understand what's happening, she said finally. Why you're doing this? Doing what? This. Her voice rose slightly. The silence. The distance. It's been 5 weeks, and you haven't called me once, haven't texted, haven't even looked at my posts. You asked for space. You know that's not what I meant. There it was. The admission. I leaned back, studied her face. Then what did you mean, Melissa? She looked away, jaw tight. I meant, I needed you to show me you cared, that you'd fight for us. By chasing you. By not just giving up. I didn't give up. You left. There's a difference. Her eyes filled with tears, and I felt that old familiar tug, the urge to comfort her, to take it all back. But I stayed quiet. I don't understand, she whispered. You always came back before. You always fought for me. And you always came back before, I said quietly. After you'd gotten what you needed from me. Proof that I was sufficiently devoted. Then things would be good for a while until you needed that proof again. It wasn't like that. Wasn't it? She wiped her eyes angrily. You're making me sound like some kind of monster. You're not a monster. But I'm not your emotional support animal either. I'm not here to perform devotion on command. I never asked you to perform anything. Melissa, I heard you. At Becca's wedding. Talking about training me. About making me think I might lose you, so I'd appreciate you more. Her face went pale. When I stepped outside, you were with some bridesmaids. Laughing about your relationship strategies. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I was just joking around. Girl talk. Maybe. But it was also true, wasn't it? She didn't answer. The silence stretched between us, heavy and uncomfortable. I didn't come here to hurt you, I said finally. But I can't keep doing this. The cycle, the tests, the constant need to prove myself. It's exhausting. So that's it. Her voice hardened. You're just done? After 3 years, you're throwing us away because I made one mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was a pattern. And I'm not throwing us away. You left, remember? Because I needed you to show me something. And I showed you that I'm not going to chase you just because you decide to run. That's the something I showed you. Just not what you wanted. She stared at me, and I could see her cycling through emotions. Anger, hurt, confusion, and finally something that looked like calculation. What if I apologize? She said. What if I promise to stop, to be better? Have you stopped? What? Right now? In this conversation? Are you being genuine, or are you trying to figure out the right thing to say to get the result you want? She flinched like I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Maybe not. But I think we both know the answer. I stood up, pulled a 10 out of my wallet, and left it on the table. I hope you find what you're looking for, Melissa. I really do. But it's not going to be with me. Please, she said, and her voice broke. Please don't do this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt nothing but a distant sort of sadness. Take care of yourself, I said, and walked out. The next 2 weeks were surprisingly quiet. No calls from Melissa's friends, no dramatic social media posts. I half expected some kind of explosion, a final desperate attempt. But there was nothing. I found out later, through Trevor, that she'd started seeing someone new. Some guy from her gym, apparently. That was fast, Trevor said when he told me. Not really, I replied. She probably started talking to him weeks ago. Doesn't that bother you? I thought about it. No, I said, and meant it. I hope she's happy. You're a better man than me. I'm just a tired man who learned when to stop fighting. Work got busy, which helped. Charlotte and I grabbed lunch a couple times, just as friends. She was going through her own breakup, actually, and it was nice to talk to someone who understood the relief of stepping away from something that wasn't working. My ex keeps texting me, she said one day over sandwiches, saying he's changed, that he'll be different this time. Will he? She laughed. No. He said that before. 3 times, actually. So what are you going to do? Nothing. That's the thing I'm learning. Sometimes nothing is the right response. I raised my coffee cup. I'll drink to that. 3 months after Melissa left, I ran into her at a mutual friend's birthday party. I debated not going, but decided I wouldn't let her control my social life. She was there with the gym guy, looking happy and animated. She saw me across the room, and her smile faltered for just a second. I nodded politely and turned back to my conversation with Trevor. Later, she approached me by the drinks table. Hey, she said. Hey, how have you been? Good. You? Good. Really good, actually. She glanced back at gym guy. That's Dylan. We've been together for about a month now. That's great. I'm happy for you. She studied my face like she was trying to find the lie. You really mean that? I do. I thought you'd be more upset. Or angry. I poured myself another drink, considered my words. I was never angry, Melissa. Just tired. And now I'm not even that. I'm just moving forward. With someone else? The question came out sharper than she probably intended. Maybe eventually. Not really focused on that right now. Charlotte from your work, right? Trevor mentioned you two have been hanging out. And there it was, the real reason for the conversation. We've had lunch a couple times. As friends. Right? Friends. She took a sip of her wine. She seems nice. She is. Melissa shifted her weight, uncomfortable. I wanted to apologize, she said suddenly. For how things ended. For the games. You were right about that. Okay. That's all. I looked at her, this woman I'd spent 3 years with, and felt like I was looking at a stranger. What do you want me to say, Melissa? I appreciate the apology. I hope you mean it. I hope things are different with Dylan. They are, she said quickly. He's more attentive, more emotional, more willing to chase. I translated mentally. Good. You deserve to be happy. She looked like she wanted to say something else, but Dylan appeared at her elbow, possessive hand on her lower back. There you are, babe. Come meet my buddy from work. Yeah, sure. She gave me one last look. It was good to see you. You too. I watched them walk away, Dylan already deep in some story, Melissa nodding along with that same evaluating look I knew so well. I felt bad for Dylan for about 5 seconds. Then I reminded myself that people choose their own paths. Trevor sidled up next to me. That looked intense. It was fine. She apologized? Yeah. You buy it. I shrugged. Doesn't matter if I buy it. It's not my problem anymore. Cold-blooded, Trevor said, but he was smiling. Nah, just realistic. Charlotte texted me the next day. Heard you ran into your ex last night. You okay? Yeah, I'm good. Weird but good. Want to grab coffee and debrief? I'm an excellent breakup conversation companion. I smiled at my phone. Sure. When? We met at the same coffee shop where I'd had that last conversation with Melissa. Seemed fitting somehow. Charlotte was already there, 2 coffees on the table. I took a guess on your order, she said. Black, right? Perfect. We sat, and for a while, we just talked about nothing important. Work, weekend plans, a show she was binge watching. It was easy. Eventually, she brought it up. So, the ex. Not much to tell. She apologized. Seemed happy with her new guy. How'd that feel? Honestly, nothing. Just neutral. Charlotte nodded slowly. That's when you know you're really over someone. When seeing them is just whatever. When did you figure that out? About 2 weeks ago. Ran into my ex at the grocery store. He was with his new girlfriend. And I just felt relieved it wasn't me anymore. Relieved is the right word. She smiled, and I noticed for the first time that she had a small scar through her left eyebrow. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. When you decided to stop chasing Melissa, was it hard? Or did it feel right? I thought back to that morning, to the sound of the doors slamming, to the coffee getting cold in my hand. It felt like the first honest thing I'd done in 3 years. That's what I thought, Charlotte said quietly. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. Yeah. We sat in comfortable silence for a minute. I'm not looking for anything, she said suddenly. Just so you know, I like hanging out with you, but I'm not trying to be a rebound or whatever. Good. Because I'm not looking for anything either. I like hanging out with you too. She grinned. So we're 2 people who like hanging out and aren't looking for anything. Exactly. Cool. 6 months after Melissa left, I got a long email from her. Late at night, clearly written in some kind of emotional state. It rambled through apologies and explanations, admitted that things with Dylan hadn't worked out, that she'd been doing a lot of therapy and reflection. The core message was that she understood now what she'd done wrong, how she'd treated me, and she wanted another chance. Not right away, but eventually. When I was ready, she'd wait. I read it 3 times, trying to find some feeling beyond mild annoyance at the presumption. Then I deleted it. Didn't respond, didn't engage. Just deleted it and went back to the book I was reading. Trevor asked me about it later. Apparently Melissa had told Becca, who told Trevor, "You're really not going to respond?" Nope. She said she's willing to wait. That's nice for her. Man, you've gotten hard. No, I said. I just learned the difference between being hard and having boundaries. What's the difference? Hard would be responding with anger or cruelty. Boundaries is just not responding at all. I don't owe her my time or emotional energy anymore. Trevor was quiet for a moment. You know what? I think that's the healthiest thing I've ever heard you say. Therapy is a hell of a drug. You're in therapy? Started about 2 months ago. Figured I should work through why I let someone treat me like that for 3 years. And I'm learning. Slowly. The thing about letting space grow is that it fills with other things. Better things, sometimes. I got promoted at work. Started training for a half marathon with Trevor. Took a weekend trip to the mountains with some buddies. No phones. Just hiking and beer and stupid conversations around a campfire. Charlotte and I kept hanging out. Still just friends, but good friends. The kind where you can sit in silence without it being weird. One night, about 8 months after Melissa left, Charlotte and I were at my place watching a movie. She fell asleep on my couch halfway through. I grabbed a blanket, covered her up, and just let her sleep. In the morning, she woke up embarrassed. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. What time is it? Just after 7. Coffee, please. I made us both cups while she tried to fix her hair in the bathroom. When she came out, she looked at me with this expression I couldn't quite read. Thank you for not being weird about that. Why would I be weird? I don't know. My ex would have made a whole thing about it. Either too into it or too uncomfortable. It's just sleep, Charlotte. People sleep. She smiled. See, this is why I like you. You're just normal. In a good way. High praise. We sat at my kitchen counter, drinking coffee and talking about nothing in particular. And I realized this was the thing I'd been missing with Melissa. Not passion or drama or grand romantic gestures. Just comfort. The ability to exist with someone without performing. Around the 1-year mark, Melissa showed up at my apartment. Didn't call, didn't text, just knocked on my door on a random Tuesday night. I opened it to find her standing there, looking uncertain. Hi, she said. Hi. Can we talk? Melissa, I don't think. Please. Just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I let her in. We stood in my living room. The same living room where she'd stood with those suitcases a year ago. "I miss you," she said simply. "I know I don't have a right to. I know I screwed everything up, but I miss you. And I think you were the best thing that ever happened to me, and I didn't realize it until you were gone." I didn't say anything. "I've been in therapy," she continued. "Real therapy, working on my issues. The control stuff, the manipulation. I'm getting better. I'm different now." "That's good. I'm glad you're working on yourself. So, is there a chance? Any chance at all?" I looked at her, really looked at her, and tried to find any remnant of what I'd felt a year ago. There was nothing. Not anger, not love, not even nostalgia. Just a vague sense of gratitude that this wasn't my problem anymore. "No," I said gently. "There's not." Her face crumpled. "Because of Charlotte? This has nothing to do with Charlotte. This is about you and me and the fact that we don't work. We never really did. We could work if you gave us another chance. Melissa, you're doing it right now. You're trying to negotiate, to convince me, to find the right words to get what you want. That's the whole problem." She stared at me. "Some people aren't meant to be together," I said. "That doesn't make either of us bad people. It just means we weren't right for each other. But I love you. I think you love the idea of me. The version that chased you, that proved his devotion over and over. But that guy was exhausted, and he's not coming back. So that's it. You're just done. I was done a year ago, Melissa. I just stopped pretending otherwise." She left quietly this time. No door slamming, no drama. Just a sad woman walking away from something that was already long gone. I stood at my window and watched her get into her car, drive away. Felt nothing but relief. My phone buzzed. "Charlotte, movie night? I'm bringing the good snacks." "Me? Come on over." "Charlotte, be there in 20. I smiled at my phone, then set it down. Made sure the apartment was presentable. Put on coffee. When Charlotte arrived with her arms full of junk food and a bright smile, I realized something. The space that Melissa left behind when she walked out that door, it had filled itself with something better. Not another relationship, not another person to prove myself to. Just peace. The quiet confidence of knowing my worth without needing someone else to validate it. And maybe, eventually, something more with Charlotte. Or maybe not. Either way, I was okay. More than okay. I was free. And that freedom, that space that grew from letting her walk away without chasing, had become the foundation of something I'd never had with Melissa. A life that was actually mine. Not performance, not constant evaluation, not exhausting emotional gymnastics. Just me, living my life, with people who added to it instead of demanding I prove I deserved their presence in it. Melissa had expected me to chase her. Everyone had expected me to chase her. But I'd let the space grow. And in that space, I'd found myself again. The version of me that didn't need to chase anyone. The version that knew when to walk away. The version that understood the most powerful thing you can sometimes do is nothing at all. 6 months later, I heard through the grapevine that Melissa had moved to another city. Fresh start, apparently. I hoped it worked out for her. I really did. Meanwhile, Charlotte and I were still taking it slow, but there was definitely something there. Something easy and honest and real. No games, no tests, no proving. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company and were curious to see where it might go. Trevor said I seemed happier than he'd ever seen me. He was right, because I'd learned the most important lesson of my life. Sometimes the best thing you can do is stop chasing. Stop proving. Stop fighting for someone who should be fighting alongside you. Sometimes, you just let the space grow. And if that means they never come back, that's okay too. Because the space they leave behind might just be exactly what you needed all along.